So for today's stream, we are going to be creating the footage for part 19 of our series right here. So this article was released last weekend. So it was around Sunday, it was Sunday night. Sorry, it was Sunday evening, and then there were some updates to it on Wednesday. So as usual, this article will be free until the video for part 19 has been released. So I'm just gonna run through all the content here. So initially the idea was for me to do it on Wednesday, but I spent Wednesday fixing some bugs on the on part 19 instead. So then that's why I'm redoing this stream again. So this footage will be cut up and then it'll be edited and it will be reorganized into part 19, our part 19 video of the Vampire Survivor series. So initially the plan was for part 19 to be about revamping the enemy spawning system, but then when I was doing that halfway, I saw a forum topic that's right here, and one of our viewers has noticed that if you were to level up your character to the point where the character either has 6 weapons or 6 passives, then you will not be able to click on any more new weapons or new passives, but they will still appear as options, which shouldn't be the case. So because of that, I helped him to fix the issue, and I realized that there was actually quite a few problems with our level up screen. So I thought, hey, let's improve that before we move on to recreating the enemy spawning system, because the level up system is pretty important, right? So why is the level up system important? Because firstly, it's like core to the game, right? So if your level up system bugs out, you just get stuck. So for example, if you get a full inventory of weapons and passives and you level up, you will still find options inside the level up screen. It's just that you cannot click on any one of them anymore because you cannot add any more items. So we need to redesign the level up screen to take into account the weapons and the passives that we already have, so that it doesn't give you options that you cannot click on, right? Otherwise, your game just breaks. And the other thing is that if you've maxed out all your weapons and passives, the level up screen also shouldn't show up. So in the future, we can add a couple of other things, like for example, we can, like for example, now in Vampire Survivors, if you've maxed out everything, then you will get consumables, right? Okay, this is something that we can add in the future. But as of now, we just want to make it so that our level up window just shows up when it has to, and it doesn't give you invalid options. I think that's a pretty basic thing that we have to expect, that we should expect out of it. So let's have a look at the article. Again, the article is free. So what are the other issues? Okay, so the first issue is, like I said, that you have passives or you have weapons that are new and appearing even though your slots are all full. Okay, and there's also another option where if you were to level up and your weapon hits the max level, right? Sometimes you will find that the weapon, because the weapon is shut off, so once you get to higher levels, even though you always have 4 options, right? Sometimes you will see only 3 or only 2 options. This is again a bug with how the system is coded, so that when you level up, you don't always get 4 options at higher levels. And again, so 2 issues we are trying to fix. We are trying to fix the issue of new weapons or new passives appearing even after you have a maximum of 6 weapons or passives. And we are trying to fix the issue of when you get to higher levels, you will find that sometimes you don't have all 4 options, you only have 3 options or 2 options, because some options they show up, but because the check for that option is too late inside the code, right? Such that you will see the item appear even though you'll see the item not appear, and then you will have missing slots. So all of the issue actually applies to our code over here. Okay, so you'll see the code over here has a couple of problems. This is the old code inside the play inventory. There is function called apply upgrade options, and then what you have all the available weapon upgrades and the available passive upgrades. You can find those inside here. Maybe let me just try and recreate the footage as well, just to show you the problems. And I think it'll be easier then, because my editor won't have to try and get the footage herself. Let me just get the footage for her. Just give me a moment. Okay, so let me show you the first problem that we have. First problem that we have is that let's just max out our items and stuff. Then you can see what's going on. So I'm just gonna get a bunch of weapons. So let me get fire one as well. I think I only have 6 weapons, right? So this doesn't really work. I gotta get passives. Okay, let me just get a bunch of passives and you'll see what I mean. Passives here. Of course, there are also other smaller issues, like for example, if you look at for example, if you look at items that are leveled up, you see level 2 over here, when they should be showing the item name, and then the level should be showing somewhere else, right? So it's not exactly how it looks like in the game itself. Okay, let me just fill up all of my slots here. Eraser. Okay, almost there. And the level. Let me just change the icon for this. Candelabra. I just wanna, because we're recording footage, so I just want everything to be to look okay. I don't want to look like we have duplicate item. Candelabra. What icon can we use? Okay, let's just put a shield over here so that we have a different icon for that weapon. Let's try this again. Let me also set the aspect to 16:9 so that it's easier for us to clip it out later. I'm just gonna get a bunch of passives, right? And then I'll show you what happens here. I duplicate it now, so I get 2 X's. And track top. like that enemies are spawning faster now, huh? Let me just get a weapon here. And let's continue getting passives. And of course, we have stat window, which we have worked on in the last part. Okay, let's get armor. And I think we should be almost there once we max it out. See what I mean? Knife. Okay, so now my passive slots are maxed out. If you look at the passive slots, there are 6 passives inside there. So there should no longer be passives that are available when I level up. But what you see is that actually there will still be, look at that, this bracer. But then when I click on it, nothing happens. The reason nothing happens is because, well, I've already got 6 passives, right? So I will not be able to add any more passives to my inventory. So when I click on it, nothing happens. That's the first issue that we have. Second issue, let me just try and see if we can get it out. Okay, second issue might take a while because we have to max out one of our weapons for this to work. So let me just max out perhaps the armor, and then you'll see that sometimes a slot goes missing once your weapons are maxed out. See, and now I can't click on spinach as well because I already have 6 passives. And I can't click on empty tomb as well because it's a new passive and I already have 6 passives as well. So now I just gotta get more items and stuff so that I can max out something. Then I can show you that sometimes the slots will go missing. Maybe I run out of enemies. Okay, seems like I run out of enemies. Gonna have to retry this again. Let me see. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so what I have here is I'm gonna max out the knife. The knife only has 2 levels, so right now it's maxed out. And what you'll see, what's going on now? Something is wrong with the wave thing. Enemy count, spawn count. The old system is a little hard to use. Can't get used to it. Okay, let me just retry the whole thing here again. Okay, so the knife is maxed out because I've only set a knife to have 2 levels. And what you'll see is that sometimes a weapon will go missing. Or rather, a slot will go missing. See that? So the reason why a slot goes missing here, even though this window is coded to have 4 slots always, right? It's because one of the weapons is maxed out, and in our code here, because we check the max level of the weapon too late, so you see that if, for example, after we've selected the knife, because the knife is at max level, but then we didn't eliminate it from as one of the choices over here. So let's say if the game selects the knife as one of the options here, when we're actually doing the check for whether we can do the upgrade, we just shut off the upgrade slot without offering a replacement. This is why we sometimes will have missing slots, and the more weapons or passives you max out, the more slots will go missing. Yeah, so this is the second issue that we're trying to fix. And yeah, so then when I offered the fix, you can look at this topic over here. The link is right at the top of part 19 article, so even if this post is locked in the future, you can still click on this link over here to see the topic. Okay, there's explanations for the fixes and all that stuff. So the main problem over here is that we check in our code, we check for whether firstly we don't do enough checks, so we don't check whether there are any more slots for us to add new items or weapons or passives, and second, we don't check whether the weapon is at max level early enough. So then this causes the problem where, you know, you will have slots that are just turned off. All right, and this shouldn't happen. Okay, so what we did was we recoded the apply upgrade options section, and what was done in this recoding is that instead of treating the weapons and passives as separate lists, so if you look at the previous piece of code here, okay, separate list, yeah. So then instead of handling everything as weapons and passives, I've recoded the function so that it handles every upgrade as just an item. And then after that, we will check first, before we select all of these possible upgrades, we check first whether we have any more weapon slots or passive slots. And then you will notice here also there are 2 lists. Okay, one of these lists are the available upgrades, and this is just a combination of the available weapons and the available passives. These are taken from, so if you recall, how we determine what weapons and passives are available as upgrades are actually set in play inventory. So you'll see a list of, for example, 6 weapons over here, and then we have a list of, let's say, 13 passives, right? So whenever we level up, the available upgrades are actually chosen from here. So instead of handling both as 2 lists, we combine everything into one. Okay, and this is just one big set of available upgrades. And from there, instead of just right away using the available upgrades to fill up the upgrade slots, we created another list of possible upgrades, and then this list is empty. All right, how do we know this list is empty? So you will see here that we have available upgrades over here, and then here we add the available passives. Sorry, let me just look through this thing again. Why do we add available passives? Is there something wrong with the code? I think I just copied the wrong thing, because this should be something else. And just look at this again, huh? Available, why do we add available passives inside here? Should it be available weapons plus available passives? Okay, just give me a moment here to work out the logic issue that I have here. Do we have an add range over here? It's a little mystifying. Oh, okay. Sorry, there was a brain fart over here. Okay, so we've talked about the two issues that we've had with the previous screen, right? Okay, so what the fix was, okay, essentially is instead of us separating the list into available weapon upgrades and available passive upgrades, we have one big list, available upgrades, which is right here. So this available upgrades is an empty list, and then all possible upgrades over here is a combination of the available weapons and the available passives, which are these variables right here: available weapons, available passives, right? And once we get a list of all possible upgrades, before we actually use this list of all possible upgrades, you see available upgrades is empty. And then what we have here is we're just setting the size of the available upgrades list to be equivalent to the size of available weapons plus available passives. Alright, so for example, if I have a total of 18 options, then the available upgrades will be a length of 18, but not all 18 slots are filled. We have to review all the possible upgrades to see which ones are actually the ones that we want to have and which ones are the ones that we don't want to have. So perhaps renaming this would be a more prudent thing to do. Instead of calling them all possible upgrades, we can just call them possible upgrades. Because renaming them properly will make this whole thing easier to explain, right? Okay. What can I rename this to? All possible upgrades. Can I change this to something else? Like, you know what? Perhaps it'd be better to call this eligible upgrades. Okay, let me just edit the post and let me re-explain this whole thing again after that. All possible upgrades. Available upgrades is a list of all upgrades. And then all possible upgrades. Upgrade system. Okay, list. You can actually okay, let me rename this, then it'll be easier for me to explain everything else. So then let's change this to eligible upgrades as well. And right here as well, eligible upgrades. And this Oh, sorry, what am I saying? This shouldn't be eligible upgrades, should be available upgrades. It's the list of we actually don't need this portion here as well. So with an empty list that we filter all upgrades, which is the list of all upgrades we can. Player and all upgrades like selected by the player. So available upgrades, and this will be all upgrades. So this will be all upgrades. All upgrades. Combine them into a single list. All upgrades. Just copy this section over here as well over the code at the bottom. So this one goes here, and this will be all upgrades. And we've got to do the same here, right? Okay, so I think it's updated now. Okay, let's go back to where I left off then. Okay, let me just retry the whole thing, yeah. So okay, so we talked about the two issues that the apply upgrade options had, and this was because we just right away pulled out the data from available weapons and available passives. And then what we did in this function was that we randomly selected one option from either the available weapon upgrades or available passive upgrades. And then we populated the upgrade window with either weapon or passive, like for every slot. So then if you look at the loop over here, what we are doing is just after we have gotten all available weapon upgrades and all available passive upgrades, we check whether there are any more weapon or passive upgrades, and if both are empty, then we will stop. We will not try and apply upgrades. Otherwise, we will randomly select either upgrade type 2 or upgrade type 1. What this does for us is that upgrade type 1 will be a passive, and then, sorry, upgrade type 1 will be a weapon, and then upgrade type 2 will be passive. And then after that, we just repeat the code. So if the upgrade type is 1, then we will select the weapon upgrade and then add it to the level up screen. Otherwise, you'll select a passive upgrade and then we add it to the screen. But the problem with that is that you see that we are checking everything after the fact. We are not. So we are just looking at all available weapons, and then if a weapon fails, for example, say there's not enough slots, or it's not enough, sorry, we don't even check for slots here. Say there are no more upgrades, okay, then we will not show an option. Okay, or say for example, if the weapon is over the max level, then we will just disable the upgrade option. So there are a couple of problems that we have over here. The logic is not entirely laid out. So what we want to do is we want to do here is we want to reorganize this. Okay, so over here in this function, what's happening is that we, instead of handling the upgrades as weapons and passives, what we are doing is that we are handling everything as a huge list of items, because both weapons and passives are items, right? So they're just all grouped into available upgrades and all upgrades. Okay, so these two are the same variables. All upgrades is just a list of all available weapons and all available passives, and then available upgrades is just an empty list for now. So why is it an empty list? Because before we actually populate these weapons, we want to check whether, for example, there are any more weapon slots we have. So if our weapon slots are maxed out, for example, then it shouldn't show any more weapons, right? And then when we look through the item data, so over here you see that we are looping through twice. Okay, the first time we're just looping through all the upgrades, and then we're individually checking whether the upgrade is eligible. Okay, so when is an upgrade eligible? An upgrade is eligible first. Okay, we check if the item exists in the play inventory. So by using the get function in the play inventory. So the get function basically finds us an item given a item data. So for example, if you have an item data of a knife, and then you do get data, and then this will give you the item which is a knife. Okay, so whatever the item is, right? Every item has a level. So then if the current level exceeds or is not less than the maximum level, then we will set it as available upgrade. So for example, if a knife's maximum level is 8, and then right now it's level 7, okay, it's eligible upgrade. But if the knife is level 8 and above, then it shouldn't be added as an available upgrade. So we are looking through all upgrades, and then if, for example, the item is already at the maximum level, we exclude it as an update by not adding this. Alright, because this condition only allows the item to be added after the level is determined to be less than the maximum. So if we have the item and the item is less than the max level, we will add it as an available upgrade. Otherwise, we will see if we have any more slots left. So recall that we have counted that we have weapon slots left and we have passive slots left as well. Alright, so if we check the weapon and then we see that there are more than 0 weapon slots left, then we will add the new weapon as an available upgrade. Otherwise, we will check if it's a passive, and then if there are passive slots left, then we'll add this as a available upgrade. So what we are doing here is that we are just filtering out, or rather we are filtering in all the upgrades that we can use. So instead of assuming that all the upgrades can be used by default, we are just running a check, and then one by one we are admitting all the upgrades we have into available upgrades. Alright, so once we look through this whole thing, we will arrive at a available upgrades list that is already filtered. So everything that is inside here is available upgrade, so we will not get into a situation where, you know, you get an upgrade and you can't click on it because you have no more inventory slots, or you get an upgrade that even though your weapon's at maximum level and you know the upgrade disappears. Alright, so you see, once we iterate through the upgrade options over here, you will see that the code is a lot cleaner. And the reason the code is cleaner is because, well, we already have filtered out all the available upgrades, and because we handle everything as items, you'll see that we do not have 2 branches. Okay, like in our original code here, we have 2 branches. We have one for weapon, and then we have one for passives as well. And you see the code is mostly the same. It's just a repeat, except for, you know, some minor changes, which makes the whole function very cumbersome. It's very long, but then most of it is just repeated code. Alright, so by merging everything into a big item list instead of handling them as weapons and passives, we see that the code is shortened a lot more. Okay, you can read the comments in the code as well, okay, to get a sense of what's going on. Okay, so for this new apply upgrade options to work, we've also had to add a couple of functions into the play inventory script, and one of these functions is a function called get slots left, which basically counts the number of empty slots for either the weapons or the passives that the play inventory still has. So this is just pretty simple. It starts with a count of 0, and then it just loops through all the slots that we have. If the slot is empty, then we will count it as an increment for count. Otherwise, we will not. And then at the end of this loop, we return the count. And the other thing that we changed also to accommodate this new apply upgrade options function is that we've changed the level up function. So previously, leveling up a item was done in the play inventory, but there are two separate functions for it. So we used to have, let me just show you here in the original code. Okay, we used to have a level up weapon function, and then we also had a level up passive item function. So these two, again, the code is mostly the same, except that with the passive, there is this extra section here where you have to recalculate the stats. Yeah, so otherwise the code is mostly the same. So because we are leveling up both weapons and passives as an item, so instead of creating two functions, or instead of having two functions for them, those two functions are removed. And then in this new function here, we are just basically having a level up function that works for both weapons and passives. So the level up function is, okay, so you'll see this entire play inventory script right here, okay, after the fixes to this topic. And the highlighted portions are the changes. Let me just, okay, I've missed out one section over here. This is the, let me just paste this in as well. You know, it's so hard to explain code. I always have trouble explaining what my code is doing, you know, because there's just, it's quite a bit of logic in it, and you know, you forget that over time. Levels up the, okay, so the level up function is actually here, right? So over here, this is the same, but you know, instead of treating the items as weapons and passives, it just treats everything as an item again, because item is superclass of weapon and passive, right? So then whatever the item can do, the weapon and the passive is able to do as well. So the only extra section here is that we check whether this item is a passive. If it's a passive, we also force the player to recalculate the stats. Everything else is the same as the previous function. Okay, it's not exactly the same because we used to level up over here, and the old function, because it was coded for the old system, I don't think it uses the do level up function to level up the weapon. Let me see. Oh, it does. It uses do level up. So this function is essentially the same. It's just merging both functions together, because otherwise we will have to check whether something is a weapon and use level up weapon, and then if not, then we have to use level up passives. But it's a lot more cumbersome if we were to separate the functions. And lastly, we've also, under the get function, so if you look at the play inventory script, right, one of the functions you will find is the get function for checking whether a weapon is of a specific type. And if it is, then we will get the weapon, and then we will return the weapon. So we have this get function for getting passives and then for getting weapons as well. Okay, so these are overloaded, which means that when you use the get function and you pass an item inside, C# will automatically determine whether your item is a weapon or passive, and then run the corresponding function. This is called function overloading, right? So over here in these two functions here, we just did a check. This is to prevent a null reference exception. Okay, so this P over here, or this W over here, is because when you try and cast the item as a passive, or when you try and cast the item as a weapon, sometimes this may fail. This will fail if the item is not a weapon or if it's not a passive. In which case, for example, over here, if the item is null, and then you try and cast it into a weapon, this will become null. Then when this becomes null, then null.data will give you a null reference exception. So before we actually check if the data is null, we have to check whether the P or the W over here is filled up, so that we don't get null reference exception when we check for W.data. And I think that's about all the changes. Okay, so one more thing is a level up function is an overload as well. Okay, an overload is basically when you have two definitions of the same function, but then these functions use different arguments. So you can think of overloading as, say, you know, if you wanted to say head downstairs to buy coffee, so I can either just give you money and then tell you what coffee I want to buy, or I can just give you money and then you decide what coffee you should buy for me. So then functions are like actions, right? So overloading means there are multiple ways to perform an action. So over here, the overloading for level up, what it does is that when we level up, we will have to specify which item we want to level up. But then there is also an additional option here where you can just specify the item data to level up something in the inventory. And the item data represents, if you recall, item data is like the ID of a weapon, right? Or in other words, for example, if we have, like, say, like we have knife and we have garlic and all these things, right? These are the weapon data, which are also item data files. And these items, right, they outline the stats and everything of the weapon, right? So it tells you how the weapon grows and everything. Okay, whereas the weapon itself, notice that you can only have one lightning ring weapon data, but then you can have multiple copies of the lightning ring in the game. So if you have multiple players, every player can get a copy of the lightning ring, right? Okay, so then all the weapons will draw data from the weapon data or from the passive data if it's a passive. Okay, so there's only one weapon data for each weapon, but then there can be multiple copies or multiple instances of the weapon in the field itself. So then, because each player can only pick up one copy of each weapon, you can actually search for a weapon by using the item data or by the item. Okay, so over here, the level up function in the play inventory script, it takes both options. So if you pass a item data, it can work. If you pass the item into the function, it can work as well. This is how the function is designed, and what is done just for ease of use, right? So that, you know, you can find or you can level up your item in both ways. You don't have to go and get the specific copy of the item first before you can level it up. So this is just to maximize the flexibility of the level up function, so that when you're coding your own game, you can, you know, if you don't quite get what's going on, you still can, you know, get your leveling up done. So after all these changes, you will find that the play inventory script is right here. Okay, and basically the changes are all highlighted inside the right here. Yeah. And what else? Okay, so once we fix this bug, or once I fix this bug, I realized that there were actually more things that we could do. And one of the other issues that we had was that our level up screen was not adaptive. So if you look at this little GIF over here, you will see that, you know, when you change the size of the window, then the, you know, certain parts will get clipped out. And this is not ideal, right? Because it's just not nice. And the other thing that we are missing in this game is that, in our game, is that if in Vampire Survivors you level up your character, you'll get an option of 3 weapons, and then if you increase the luck, you get 4. Alright, but ours always gives us 4 options. Okay, so we want to fix that as well, since, you know, we are touching up the level up screen, right? Okay, and thirdly, we also want to just add this extra little interface thing over here where if your weapon is level 2, level 3, whatever, it shows you the level as well, and it shows you the evolution as well. Okay, we're not going to cover the evolution, showing of the evolution in this part, but in the future part, once everything is ironed out, we will do that. So we want to modularize the code that we have for the level up screen. And the reason that we want to modularize things is because you can think of, okay, right now the level up screen is managed entirely by the player inventory, and this makes it very problematic, because how do I explain this? Whenever you code something, right, you want that something to stand on its own. You don't want it to be managed by something else. So for example, if the level up UI screen is managed by the player inventory, if in the future, right, I want to create something else, some other feature in the game that also gives us level up. For example, if I want to grab a treasure chest, and then treasure chest will pop up the level up screen. I will have to code a separate level up screen for it, if that makes sense. So if I tie the level up to the player inventory, then this makes it very cumbersome if I want to show a variant of the level up screen in a different part. So what usually we do in software development, and in certain aspects of engineering as well, you will see this, is that whenever we code something, we want to make something as modular as possible. What does it mean when you make something modular? You can take a simple example. Take this mouse, for example, right? This mouse over here is modular. What does it mean to say, when we say that this mouse is modular? I can plug in the mouse to any computer. Alright, so right now I'm attaching it to my desktop, but let's say if I bring out my laptop and I want to work at a Starbucks, I'm able to plug in this mouse to my laptop and it still works. And that's because the mouse is modular. It is a complete package by itself, and no matter where you move it, as long as you plug it into a computer, it can work. So we want our level up screen to be the same way. We do not want it to be tied to the player inventory. Instead, we want it to be able to be attached to any component that we want in the game. So another example that you can see in Unity itself is, you will see that a lot of components that are created in Unity are modular in nature. So for example, the rigid body is modular in nature. Why do we say that? Because you can attach a rigid body to any game object inside Unity, and it will start working. It will start performing its job of turning an object into a physics-based object, if you catch my drift. Yeah, so this is what modularity means, and our level up screen is really not modular. It's just very deeply tied together with the level up screen, and we want to introduce a little distance between them, so that when we want to use the level up screen somewhere else in the future, right, we'll be able to do it. We're not just stuck with the level up screen being tied to the player inventory. Alright, so that is the other thing that we want to do. We want to make the level up screen modular. So the first thing to getting everything modular, again, modularity also means that because it's, how do I say, because it's just its own package, right? It has to be able to function in multiple scenarios. And one of the scenarios that we want our level up screen to be able to function is in the level ups, is when, say, if you change the size of the screen. Right now it breaks, right? If if I can just show this to you. So let me just get a level up, and then you will see that the screen breaks, which is not ideal. Okay, so if I do free aspect of it, sorry, I've gotta redo this. Okay, so if I have the level up screen here, you'll see that it breaks at certain sizes. If it's too small, or if it's, let's say, a mobile screen, some parts will be chopped off. So this limits the modularity of everything, right? As opposed to, let's say, you look at a level up bar, it's very modular, right? You see, no matter how you stretch or squeeze it, you see the bar always adapts the maximum length of the screen. Not so for our level up screen, right? So this is what we want to fix first of all. Okay, so this is called adaptivity. And when we say that something is adaptive, we mean that something can adapt to different layouts. And adaptiveness is something that is very intrinsic to mobile applications, or sorry, to websites, not mobile applications. Okay, so you see a lot of websites, for example, if you open it in a desktop versus if you open it on mobile, it's totally different. Yeah, and this is one example. This is one of the sites that we worked on for a client some time ago. Okay, we are releasing, just on a side note, we are releasing a tutorial series about how to create your own websites as well, so stay tuned for that. We're in the process of editing it. So the first thing that we want to do, our first step to making the level up screen adaptive, is to make a duplicate of the level up screen first. Okay, so we make a duplicate of it so that in case we mess up whatever we want to do, we can always go back to the backup. Okay, so that is exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to turn off our pause screen that we did in the last part, and this is the upgrade screen. So the upgrade options folder, this is the one that is responsible for rendering our update screen. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this, and I'm just going to call this upgrade options folder new. And I'm going to hide the old upgrade options folder. And next thing we're going to do is, okay, so before we do anything, right, okay, so whenever we want to make something adaptive in Unity, what it means that is I want to be able to scale the element, and then everything will scale together. So now if you see our upgrade screen here, if I try and scale it down, you see that everything breaks, right? Because if I make the box smaller, then the buttons don't fit inside, and then the background doesn't scale with us as well. Okay, so the first thing we will do is, before we actually try and make everything scalable, is to move the background inside the upgrade options folder. Okay, so when we do that, you will see that the background becomes another item inside, and this is because the upgrade options folder is built using a vertical layout group. Okay, so we will just have to select the background and then add a layout element over here and just click on ignore layout. What this does is that this makes it not part of the vertical layout. Alright, so that we can now select the background and then just alternate and then click to stretch everything to cover the entire element. So you see now that the background scales together with our upgrade options folder here. Yeah, the buttons don't scale, but that's something that we'll work on later. Okay, so after we are done with that, we will have to swap the sprites for the background and the holder because the border is gone, and the border is actually provided by this element over here. Okay, so instead of having the holder provide the border, I'm gonna just copy the settings of the folder image element. I'm gonna paste it onto the background. Okay, and then let me just note the color code here first, and I'm just gonna paste component values so that over here the background actually gives us the border. The holder, what I want to do is I want to delete this, and I want to change the color over here to, what's the number that we were using just now? Actually forgot. There we go. Okay, so we want to swap the elements inside here so that we get the border on top of the background. Okay, and the background provides us with the border. Alright. So once we are done with that, you will notice also that now the buttons here become unclickable. And the reason for that is because our background now is blocking our buttons. Okay, so I won't be able to click on the buttons now. And to fix that, I have to select this and then just uncheck raycast target on the upgrade options background. Otherwise, again, the image will block the buttons. Alright, so what this does now for us is that this makes this entire section here, this entire window here, the background now scales together the border, right? Which is one big problem that we had with the level up screen. The other thing that we want to fix now is we want to get the buttons themselves to scale together with us. And that is actually a pretty simple fix because you just got to go to the vertical layout group and then check on control child size. And then what this does is you'll see now that everything scales together for us. Okay, so the reason why we are making everything scale together as one element is because later on when we split the anchor, I'll explain what that is later, and the screen size changes, you'll see that the window will change in size. So whenever the screen size changes, the window changes in size, every element inside the window must change size together. We can't have just the border changing size and the buttons not changing size. Or we cannot just have, say, the border changing size, but the background isn't changing size. That creates a lot of problems for us. So we have this element over here, and you see the buttons now are tapered to the border, and this is a really easy fix because we just got to go to padding and then just make sure that our padding is set to be as follows. Alright, so if you check control child size like that, and you scale the element, you see that now this always scales. Okay, we have another problem, which is that if you scale it vertically, you see that the buttons will leak out of the container. So we will also have to use control child size on the height, and then we have to force expand as well. And now you'll see that everything scales quite nicely. Okay, of course the text will cut, and then the icon will cut out also. So we'll fix that later, but at least for now, you know, once we get everything like this, okay, you can see that we are able to scale and everything will move together. All right. So once you have this, we are 50% done with getting this window adaptive. The other 50% is basically looking into each of the options over here and making everything inside the option adaptive. Let me see if that's what is covered in the article first. This is getting running scale properly, which is fine. Okay, so before we go into the buttons themselves, okay, so the reason why we want to make everything like this scale together is because whenever you want to make something adaptive, how Unity does it is Unity just gets you to split the anchor. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to split the anchor as follows. I want the window to take up 50% of the canvas. So what I'm going to do is just split the anchor horizontally as follows. Okay, so that over here this is 0.25, and then here I'll just set this to 0.75. And then vertically I want this to cover about 80%, so I'm just going to set it to 0.05 here and then 0.85 over. Okay, so you see the anchor will move accordingly to the respective portions of the screen. And now once I've set the anchors, I can set the left, top, bottom, and right to 0. And you will see that the window now resizes itself accordingly. And now if I change the size of the screen, you see the window will adapt itself. Okay, it's not complete yet because the individual buttons themselves still have to be made responsive. You'll see that if I make the window here excessively small, then the icon will get clipped out and then the text will also get cut off. Okay, so that's the next thing that we're going to work on. So I see that we have a message as well. I'm sorry for missing it out just now because I was midway through explaining something. Hi JT, I'm glad our tutorial has been helpful to you, and I'm glad we have viewers. I didn't think that we'd have viewers because I don't know why. Because the last stream there were not many viewers, and well, the last stream, to be honest with you, was pretty dry as well. You know, usually the streams are more interesting because the last stream was just me editing the article. So totally understand that it's a little more dry, and you know, like lesser people would tune in. So in this stream there is no music because whatever they were recording here will go into the part 19 video as well. So I'm midway through explaining that, and let me see where I left off. Okay, so now that we have gotten the entire window to become adaptive, the next thing that we want to do is we want to get the individual buttons to become adaptive as well. And this is a little bit, I wouldn't say it's trickier because it's the same concept. So just in the same way that we split the anchor for this window over here, we're going to split the anchor for the button over here. So if you look into the elements in the button, you will see that, well, you know, all the anchors not split, which is why it doesn't scale, right? Which is why everything gets scrunched up and the image gets scrunched up as well. So I'm gonna also just change the layout of this element as well a little bit so that there is a little bit more space for everything. You see that there's hardly any space for the description, and there's a lot of space for the title, but the description is working with very little space. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to rearrange everything so that it looks like this instead. Yeah, so we have the icon at the side, and then we have title and the description. This makes a lot more sense. And then we're also gonna add a new element at the bottom of the icon that says level 1 or that says new or whatever. Okay, so that whenever you get a new item, it just shows you the new keyword over here. Same way that when you play Vampire Survivors, you see this new word, right? You see the level. So for our layout, it's gonna be the same, except that the text is gonna be below the button icon, right here. So in the future, we are also gonna add, probably in the future part 20, we're also gonna add one more little prompt here to show the evolution of a upgrade. So for example, if you already have a garlic and you get Pomerola, the Pomerola will say that this helps you evolve garlic into something else. All right, so this is gonna tie up together with the new item display system that we have. So I've been working a lot on the UI just because I think that the UI can be more modular, which is why you are getting this part. So I want to get the enemy spawning system out, but the UI is pretty important component of everything as well. So that was why I took a detour to touch up the UI for this series. So let's look at getting the options to become adaptive as well. So I'm just gonna rename the items over here. I'm just gonna call this description. I'm gonna call this, let me see what I name them inside here. This will be called the name. I'll explain why later. Okay, first I just want to make everything a bit more readable. This will be the button, right? And this will be just the item icon. This will be the icon. And the icon will have the what's inside the icon. Border and item icon. So we have the border, the item icon. So I'm gonna just update the upgrade option one. I'm gonna delete the rest of the options later, because we will just be duplicating this to replace the other upgrade options. Alright, so this icon over here, okay, so again we're gonna split the anchor. So instead of, you'll see that right now the item is anchored to the left. We don't want the item to be anchored to the left, because this means that this item is gonna have a fixed number of pixels, which is not ideal. So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna split the anchor and get it to occupy, say, 20% of X, like this, and then this will be 100% of Y, right? So the icon will cover an area like this, and then I'll just set left, top, right, and bottom to 0, and you see the icon will take up this amount of space. So with the icon, it's a little bit tricky because the icon over here is an image, right? And then we want the image to, let me just find a sprite for the image over here. The reason why is because we want to do a preserve aspect. Okay, so we're gonna use a little trick over here. So we're just gonna make the icon take up 20% of the entire space, and then of course 100% of the height. So it's gonna take up 20% of the entire box. And because we don't want the image to actually stretch, so you see now, depending on how you stretch the element, right? This can either be a square or it cannot be a square. Let me just apply this to the knife, and I think you can see it a little better. So for the knife, because it's inside the icon, I'm just gonna get the knife to be stretched like that. Okay, and I'm gonna also get the border to stretch. Border is really stretched. Okay, so you see that because I've made the anchor like that, in certain screen sizes, you see that something of the icon will be a square, but in certain sizes, this will not be a square. So this can cause a problem. So I'm gonna just grab the icon over here and select preserve aspect. Same thing for the border. So for the border, I can't do that. So I'm gonna have to change the border to simple, and then preserve aspect. And then same thing for the item icon, preserve aspect. So you see, once I preserve aspect, everything gets turned into a square because the default resolution for the image is square. Yeah. So then this, you see, this solves the problem that I had. And well, the border is a little bit big, but I think that's fine. Not sure if I can do anything about it. Simple. You know what, this is fine, I'll just work with it. Okay, so the other thing you'll notice is that you see that the icon is just right at the border, which is not ideal, right? So we can also, just now we set the left, top, bottom, and right to 0. I can just set a slight margin for the left, top, right, and bottom like this, and you will see that there is now a bit of space between the icon and the absolute corners of the screen. And then for the border can be as follows. For the item icon, I can just add a little border as well around, and then this will cause the item icon to fit inside the borders of the whole thing. And this is how you get the icon to become adaptive. So now you see, if I modify the size of the screen, you see the icon is pretty adaptive. Okay, at smaller screens, it still, you know, gets a little wonky, as in it's a lot of space at the side, right? But as a whole, you know, this is a lot better than, you know, the icon cutting out the box and all that stuff. Okay, so we will do the same for the description and name. So for the name, we're going to rearrange this as well. So instead of having it have an anchor that's not split, I'm just going to split the anchor. And because the image itself over here, right, takes 20% of the screen, this is going to start from 0.2 and it will go all the way to 1. And for the height, I'm just going to set this, just going to eyeball this over here. Just going to put it right here at, say, 0.7. and 1. And then let me just set everything to 0 like that. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna left align and center align this. Okay, so then you see the upgrade name is right on top. And if you don't like the positioning, we can also just shift the anchors a little bit. So instead of it being at 1, I can set it to say 0.9, and this can be 0.6, for example. So then this, you can shift the anchor around to get everything working. Main thing that you want to pay attention to here is you want to make sure that overflow attribute over here is overflow. Because if it's the default value of truncate, if your box becomes too small, right, the text just goes away. Okay, so make sure that this is set to overflow. And description, I'm just going to move it, same thing, right below upgrade name. And gonna have speed anchor as well, so this will be 0.2 and 1. And this will be, I can just pull this down and I can move this up a little bit more, say it's 6, 0.6, right? 0.6, 0.1. And again, you want to left align and all that stuff. So if you see the spacing is too little, you can always move this down, yeah, to get the upgrade description to be a little bit more. Or, you know, we can just put it nose to nose, it's fine as well, but then we can just put a little bit of top padding, say 4 or something. Okay, just to get the element to fit inside the little box that we have for it over here. And again, you want to change the overflow here to overflow, not truncate, so that if the box gets too small, the text will still show. Yeah. So now you see the text doesn't really, you know, it's always the same size, but that's fine. Okay, we can add a canvas scaler later if we want to fix the text sizing and everything, but you see that now, you see it's a lot more adaptive. And for the level text, we're gonna have to add a new element over here. So for level text, I'm just gonna have to move the icon anchor. So I'm gonna set this to 0.8. Sorry, I'm gonna set this to 0.2. Okay, and what this does is that I'm just gonna shift the bottom up a little bit more. Top can remain at 10. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just shifting the icon up a little bit so that we can add one more text element at the bottom over here. And this text element here is going to be smaller. And again, I'm gonna split the anchor of this text element by setting this to 0 and 0 for the X and 0.2. So you see the anchors are here. And then for the Y, this will be 0.8 and 1. Sorry, this will be 0.2. Sorry, 0, 0.8. There we go. Okay, so you see a little box over here. And I'll just set this whole thing to 0. And then this moves the text inside right below the icon. And if this is too close to the edge, of course, we can always align it to the top. Makes sense, like that. Okay, then this text will say level. So you're gonna have to play around with your own configuration. Okay, just play around with the anchor and just, just be doing what I'm doing, which is to set the anchors, and then you see the 4 points, and then just set everything to 0 here, and then this will move your element within the anchors itself. Okay, so if you build everything by splitting the anchor in this way, this will make everything very organized, and then when you resize, see, everything will always shift accordingly. And of course, just remember to make sure that all your text, okay, if when you scale to certain sizes, if you see that the text clips out, you can always just introduce a little bit of bottom padding, and then this will just ensure that the text never spills out. Okay, so over here, by introducing a bottom padding, you see I'm pushing up the text like that. Okay, let me put this as 5, and then left padding, perhaps this will be 5 as well. So you can use the padding to kind of push things away from the sides. Same thing with the description here. You see description here, because the text is expanding a little too much, I can set the right padding to be 5, and then this pushes everything away a little bit from the border. Same thing with name, a little bit of right padding can push things away from the border. Okay, so I'm aware we have a message on the chat as well, right? Hi Kai, so does this work with horizontal layout? This does, but you will have to play around with the settings on your end. So everything works by splitting your anchor. So if you split the anchor correctly, then everything should be fine. You just got to play around the settings for the horizontal layout. The steps should be the same, should be the exact same, except that you are aligning everything horizontally. So then your anchors be split differently, and your considerations might be a bit different. Yeah. So if you have any questions or problems, as usual, you can always post them in the forums, and I'll be happy to help. Okay, so now that we have the buttons set up, let me just reduce the size of the name a little bit, and also the description, so that we have a bit more leeway to work with when it comes to adaptivity. Okay, so now that everything is adaptive, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab the rest of the upgrade options and just delete them. And this will kind of mess up the layout a little bit. So before we do that, let's disable the child force expand again, and then the control child size. Sorry, let me uncheck this and uncheck this. Okay, so then when I uncheck the height portions of stuff of the horizontal layout, okay, right here and here, okay, you'll see that this goes to, when I delete these options, the size of this window will remain the same. So later on, we'll be adding a script that will allow us to automatically duplicate this. Okay, so now this is a template that we are going to be using to duplicate the rest of the options. I'm going to rename this to upgrade option. There's no one at the bottom. And I'm also going to add one more element over here that's called text. And this will be the tooltip. And then what this tooltip does is this tooltip will allow us to, because in the game, right, you see that when you level up, there will be a tooltip that shows up sometimes, and this tooltip shows up when you only have 3 items, and it tells you to increase your luck for a chance to get 4 items. So we have to have a tooltip over here at the bottom that we can replace with our own text. So I'm just gonna add a new text here called you can insert your tooltip, or you can just say tooltip goes here actually. Okay, I've created a wrong component here. This should be a Text Mesh Pro, right? Because it's what we are using for our scripts. So Text Mesh Pro right here, and then this will be tooltip. So insert your tooltip, gonna center a line and reduce the size. Okay, so there's also one option here called auto size that you can choose to use or not to use Personally, I don't like to use it very much, but if you use auto size, right, what this does is that when you use auto size like that, when the space for your text decreases, then the size will adapt itself. So for this tooltip here, because I haven't made it responsive, so it doesn't exactly change sizes. Let me maybe show you somewhere else. Okay, so if I apply this to the level up text, for example, if I do auto size over here, okay, you'll see that if I resize the window, okay, let me just split the anchor like this. Okay, so you'll see that if I change the size of the window, the size of the text changes as well. Okay, according to the anchors. Okay, so this can be useful. The auto size option can be useful if you want to make your text behave like an image, where you know it's responsive. But then what the problem with this is that when you do that, then the text always expands to fill up the entire container. So for example, if I were to apply this to my description, for example, yeah, if I say auto size, see that it becomes very big, and then it only shrinks when the size of the window decreases. See that it gets smaller, which was not really ideal. Can make it very difficult for you to adjust the size of your elements and stuff. So I prefer not to use auto size, but this is one option that you can play with if you really want to explore your options when it comes to how to make your stuff responsive in the game. So I'm just gonna add a tooltip over here. I'm not gonna make it responsive. Yeah, so then it's just gonna be at the bottom right here, like this. Okay, later I'm gonna show you one more option that you can use, canvas scaler, that you can use to get your tooltips and everything, your text and everything scale to different screen sizes as well. So I'm gonna add a tooltip over here, and next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new script, and this script is gonna be called. Firstly, it's gonna go into the UI folder that we have, and I'm gonna call this UI upgrade window. And what this upgrade window is gonna do is it's gonna be responsible for a couple of things. Okay, so it's gonna look like that. Let me just copy the script over here first into the project, and then I will run through the entire script with you. Sorry, it's the wrong place to copy this. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy the script over here. And you see that once I copy the script, there will be a couple of errors. And the reason for that error is because for this to work, I will also have to update some of my older scripts. Okay, the reason for that is because this upgrade window, right, requires us to handle everything. Let me see how to explain this. Okay, so we have weapons and then we have passives, right? Okay, and then we have, for our weapons, we have stats. And then these stats will contain stuff like, for example, the area of the weapon, the damage, the cooldown, etc., etc., right? And then we have passives. Passives don't have stats. Passives have modifiers. Alright, and then these modifiers are basically changes to the character stats. So then the passive gives us, so then because the way that the boosts for the weapons and the passives are different, it gives us some problems. So we have to unify them because the stats and the passives are unrelated. So then we cannot retrieve the data from items. So what I'm trying to say is that this UI upgrade window, right, what it does is that it treats all items, all weapons and passives as items. But then items don't have a level. Items don't have item stats because the stats are different depending on whether they're weapons or whether they're passives. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna unify the weapon stats and the passive modifiers as one superclass. Then we can manage both of them as an item. Let me show you what I mean, right? Okay, so the problem that we have is that we do not have a generic way for us to handle weapons and passive stats. So to fix that, I am going to have to go into the item script, which is right here. And inside the item script here, I'm going to introduce a new serializable that's called level data. like that. And this will be the parent class. And then what it does is that this just contains the name of the weapon and the description of the weapon. All right, and this is going to serve as the superclass for, if you recall, right, inside the weapon script. Okay, we have a stats object. You can head back to lesson 15 and see the explanation for what this stats object does. It basically stores stats for a weapon, right, which, you know, there are various stats, and allows us to add stats together so that when you level up, you can add one stat with another stat and then the item gets boosted. So I'll remove this string and description over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this struct to a class, and I'm going to make this inherit from level data. Okay, why? Because item over here now has level data, right? So then you'll see that there is still a name and description, but this is inherited from level data. I will do the same with the passive, and the passive is the script is here, right? Okay, we have modifiers here, right? I'm going to change this to a class as well. I'm going to extend level data. So what this allows us to do now, right, is that you'll see that in both the weapon and the passive, we have a function that's called, okay, let me remove this as well, I forgot about that. So you gotta remove the name and description because it's inherited from level data as well. Okay, and what you'll see is that because in item data, right, what you have is that you don't have a way to retrieve the data of the item in a certain level. Alright, so then you also, okay, if you look at the, let's go to the passive data script, and let's go to the weapon data script as well. Where is our weapon data script? There we go. Okay, so you see that there is a get level data. Okay, but this get level data is only inside the weapon data and the passive data, and they are defined differently. Okay, they're not, so which means that if you have item data, you cannot get the level data of the item, even though items have levels, right? You can't do that. So let me see what I did here. So what we want to do is that instead of providing this at the passive data and weapon data level, we want to go to item data over here, and we want to also define an abstract function that returns a level data, and this is called get level data. And this will, of course, give us, it will take the level of the item, this. Oh, this is item level data. Sorry. Okay, so what this does is that this allows the item data object to also retrieve the data of an item. Previously, you couldn't get this from the item data. You had to convert the item data to either passive data or weapon data for this to work. All right. So now, if I go back passive data over here, I just have to change this to override, and then this will be item level data. Sorry, it's override. There we go. Okay, and same thing for weapon data. I've got to change this to override, and this will be item level data. So the reason I'm doing this, you'll see, is that because in the UI upgrade window, right, there are a couple of parts in the code where I have to get the level data. But then I'm not getting the level data of a weapon or a passive. I'm getting the level data of a item. And this is why we have to create a generic, or rather a parent level function that allows the item data to use get level data. So we just have to make a couple of changes to the code to get the function homogenized so that the item data can also call the function. Right? So then once we have this done, you see that UI upgrade window works. And what we have inside here, right, is basically, let's just add this script. Okay, sorry, a couple more changes, right? So once we make these changes, you will see that an error appears over here. Because now when we get level data, we are not getting the modifier, we're getting the level data. So we have to just do a little bit of casting. So just pass this over as a passive data, right? So it's a passive modifier. This is what I do in the code here as well. Okay, code is done. It does things a bit differently. Basically, just casting like that, modifier. And under weapon, same thing. Over here, I have to cast this to a yeah. Okay, probably I need to write an article or something to explain this in more detail, right? This is a concept that's pretty hard to explain and it caused me a lot of problems when I first started coding as well. So let me see if I can expand upon this in the article, and you know you can read this in the article. Okay, so now that we have homogenized and we have made it possible for the item data to get the level data of an item, we can move on to the UI upgrade window, okay, which should work now. All the errors here should be gone. Okay, I've got to upgrade. I've got to update my play inventory script as well. Forgot about that. So make sure if you're following this video, you copy the play inventory script as well, and you drop it inside this play inventory script. Let's see. Player, and then play inventory. There we go. Do I have to do a class with play inventory as well? Okay. Says here that play inventory is missing a cast. Missing a cast means this. Get level data, passive data, chosen upgrade. And we just gotta cast this to one stats. And this will be passive dot modifier. So next level. So it looks like we will have to get level data. Okay, I'm missing a little something over here. So let me just modify this as well. So there is a get level data somewhere, right? It's inside the apply upgrade options function over here. Apply upgrade options, where is it? Give me a moment to edit the post because there is an issue in the player inventory script. So let me duplicate this. Move this all the way down. New section over here. It says date, this 4th of May. Pause the player inventory script. We just get yellow data as well. We will also have the class result. The changes above. False errors. If move this inside and so the cast is actually inside of, let me remove section and this entire marked section here as well. And this is the old apply upgrade section. Apply upgrade options. Where is the section we want? Oh, no, sorry, we don't have to use this part because we will be replacing the play inventory script as well, right? Set upgrades. To get it working, we have to hook it to the play inventory like this. So we don't need this entire section. Sorry. Mix up on my part. Okay, so after let me just hook up the play inventory script as well. Just copy this. Okay, now I explain what's going on here, right? Let me just. Okay, so how the UI upgrade window works, I hope that you're not just copying and pasting code if you're following this video. So how this thing works is basically you add it to the upgrade options holder window right here. And what it does is that right away, right, it automatically finds the upgrade option over here. If you name it upgrade option, automatically it finds the tooltip as well. Okay, and then you just have to set the max options, which already have been set for you, new text as well. And then you have the icon paths. Okay, these are important because you will have to fill up the names according to the path of your icon, the description, the name, button, and the level. So if you copy and paste the script into your project, right away you will find that it just works. But that's not ideal, right? Because copying and pasting code doesn't actually help us to learn anything. Okay, this is not working. I'm sorry. Gotta figure out why this is not working then. So this isn't working because why it's not working? Upgrade option. This guy. And is it linked? It's linked to an inventory, no? Let me just debug this and have a look at this. So this links to an inventory, right? Where's the inventory? Good options here. And the upgrade UI window. Over here, and then over here, what this does is, oh, my bad. Okay, so after you copy and paste both scripts and you update your player inventory, you will have to also go back to the player, and you will see that the upgrade window over here, you have to assign this upgrade window, which is right here. Okay, so once you assign the upgrade window, you should see that the upgrade window starts working. Of course, copy and pasting is not the best. Now it's not working still. Why is it still not working? Isn't that the question of the day? Okay, it's not working still. Let's have a look at the player inventory. Right, upgrade window. What's going on here? I've gotta start debugging this and give me some time to figure this out. Index of range exception, what the hell is this? Did I miss out something? Under passive data, why is there an index out of range exception? Doesn't make sense at all. I think this error is causing everything to stop working. Otherwise, everything should work without a problem. Index is out of range, outside the bounds of the array. But I'm not getting this in the original. Index is out of range. Why do you keep giving me a passive? This is probably the most frustrating part to create because it's so abstract and it's difficult to explain some of the concepts that are inside here. Okay, so there is a little change over here that I didn't highlight as well, which I should have, and it is that passive data, and over here there's one extra little thing here that I have to add. Just mark this. Weapon. Weapon data. Passive data weapon. We have extra passive data over here, which I'm not sure what it's doing here. it what is also add following line in both in the get level. This line is added event and index of bounds exception. Index out of range exception. Because if the for get level data one or below, you will one of the lines in the code means that if you all get level data one or below, you get growth 1 minus 2. Will give you linear growth invalid index rate indexes. Okay, so now we fix the issue. So I just forgot to, because over here if our item is level 1, what happens is the get level data will actually give you a level of 1, and what this gives us is 1 minus 2 is actually -1, and if -1, if we get -1 and we put it inside the array over here, right, this is going to give us, well, index out of range exception. So you just want to add a new line over here that says if level is less than or equals to 1, then we return the base stats. So we want to do the same thing for both the weapon data and the passive data. And this should fix our issue. And then we can, everything should work now. You know, barring anything weird. There we go. So everything works now. We have one small problem still, and that's that 4 items are appearing even though our luck is like 0, right? Let me check. Our luck is 0, so I don't know why we have 4 items appearing. It shouldn't be happening. Maybe I've copied the wrong logic somewhere. Let me just try this again. I shouldn't be getting 4 items, right? Something wrong with the formula. Get 4 items first. And I have no luck. It's always 4 items. So probably my formula is wrong with it inside here. If 1 minus 1 less than, should be less than or should be greater than? I'm really confused by this luck thing, you know, like my formula seems to be a little off. We'll see how it goes. So now what's going on here? My formula is, what's wrong with my formula? If I increase my luck stat, will it give me a higher chance of getting 4 items? I'm trying to get the clover. Okay, I hear your message. I'm aware there's a new message. Just give me some time to test this out first before I read your message, alright? Trying to test out the luck stat to see if my formula is correct. But the clover is not appearing. My luck is 1 right now, so I don't know if I should be getting extra items. I don't think I'll get extra items from here. I'm not getting the clover to appear. I need the clover. Test this out. Hi, Chotian. Everything is great. I'm just a little irritable today because a lot of bugs on the software, or rather, it's just, you know, because it's a very, it's UI stuff, right? So UI stuff usually it's a little buggy, it's a little hard to work with. So it gets me irritable when I find a bug and I can't solve it. But otherwise, everything is great. Once this is recorded, you should be able to see the video in about 1 or 2 weeks. Hopefully, faster the better, right? And then next thing, I'm going to move on to touching up the inventory slots and stuff, which is going to be quite difficult as well, but we'll get there. And then after that, we'll move on to the enemy spawning system, which is the fun part. So right now, I'm just trying to work out this formula over here. This formula here is the luck stat, right? So Unity random value gives a value between 0 and 1. Maybe I can just print out both values and we can see. We can just debug this directly. Roll this. And then this will be 60. This is the roll. Okay, let's test this out. I just want to make sure my luck formula is correct before I roll out this video, because the video cannot be changed, but the article we can change, right? But if the video is wrong, then you know, just gotta live with the mistake on the video. The roll over chance here is 0. The roll here is 0.89. So you get 3 items. And if I increase the chance for clover, then what happens? So now I have a roll of 0.5 and the chance is 0.09. So I have to roll below I have to roll below 0.9, right? So my logic is correct. Okay, so yeah, my logic is correct here. It should be greater than, it's not less than. So let me just update the article, and then I think that is about it. I think that's about all for what we have. This should be greater than here as well. Okay, so let me just run through what's going on here. So the implementation is pretty easy, right? Just update your scripts according to here. You just update the play inventory script, and then you update the UI upgrade window script, and then you just make everything adaptive. And what else? And everything works. So let me just run through what the UI upgrade window screen does and how it works code wise. So over here we have a low chance of getting 4 items, but as you increase your luck stat, you have a higher chance of getting 4 items. So, and of course all the issues are fixed as well, so you no longer get, you know, upgrade options that are not supposed to be there and all that stuff. Always fantastic. 4 options here because I have luck stat of 1.1, so it's possible for me to get more than 4. Okay, so everything is working now. So let me just run through the code. I'm gonna remove any extra codes that we have here as well for debugging. Don't need this. Let me just also remind let me just add this. Let me just add a reminder to the article as well regarding this. I'll add it later into the article. So let me just explain, before I wrap up this stream, let me just explain what's going on with the UI upgrade window. So the code creates a component that looks like this, and whenever you have a piece of code that you're not sure how it works, the best thing to do is to look at the component itself, and then you want to see what's going on in the component. So what's going on in the component is we have a template over here which points to the upgrade option. So automatically it should populate itself. So if it doesn't, then you will have to assign your upgrade option over here. That's the button that you have. And then of course you got to assign the tooltip as well. Yeah, and then the rest of the stuff is all the stuff that's inside upgrade options. The background, you can ignore it. Okay, so these two are used to control the components. So yeah, you have upgrade options here, you have tooltip over here, and then you have max options here, which allows you to set how many options there are, and then you have a new text. This new text is just when you level up, you will find that if it's a new item, the new word will appear here. So if you change the text over here, this changes, and then this color over here is just the color text. So if you want it to appear red, for example, just set it to red, and then next time you level up, the text will be red. Let me show this to you. Okay, so this then level text is basically what happens when you already have a weapon, and the text will be white, right? By default it's white. But if you want to change it to something else, again, that's fine as well. See, it's white here, it's red here because it's set to red. And then the paths over here are just the paths to the different fields in the button. So for example, over here I have item, icon, under icon. So icon, item, icon. This target is the icon, and then you have description. You got to point to the description and so on. All right. So when you add the UI upgrade window, make sure that these two are assigned, and then you want to set these to whatever options you want, and then the paths, you have to make sure that it matches all the names of the different UI components that you have in your button. All right, and then this upgrade option here will serve as a template, so then whatever you set in upgrade option will duplicate itself across the window. And let's look at the code for the UI upgrade window, because in the code, right, what happens is that we have whenever you want to understand what's happening in a component, the first thing you want to do is look at the variables and look at the comments on the variables. And in these comments, I've put a lot of effort into fleshing out these comments, because if the comments are clear, it helps you when you read through the code to understand what's going on. First thing you want to do is we want to get the vertical layout. The reason we get a vertical layout is because if you recall, right, in our upgrade options folder, our control child size and child force expand are not toggled. So what this means is that the height will have to be controlled by the window itself. So if you look at our upgrade window, right, it actually is responsive. And the reason it's responsive is because the code itself, right, over here in the script, actually resizes the boxes based on the size of the parent. Yeah, otherwise we will have to check these two options. And the reason why I've made the upgrade window manage the height instead of letting the vertical layout group manage the height is because the vertical layout group doesn't always manage the height reliably. It doesn't space the items evenly. Sometimes you get the text covering a lot of space, which is not great. So I thought, we should just let the UI upgrade window handle the resizing of the buttons itself. So then we also have, again, these are all the variables that we just discussed. So these are all variables that are public, and there's not much for me to say about them. And you have these variables over here. These variables, they're here because they're just there to make the functions work. So then we have a list of upgrade options as well. These are all so when the upgrade window appears, right, you see different buttons will appear. So then this just stores a list of all the upgrade options. These are all just to run the certain functions. All right, so these are all just to run the functions in the upgrade window. The main function that you want to take note of inside upgrade window is set upgrades, okay, which is what we call in plain inventory. So if you look at the article, right, in the article, what you have changed as follows. All right, so once you put the upgrade window in, you also will have to head over to the play inventory script, and then you will have to basically make a few changes. First, we remove the old upgrade options variable. Okay, and then we replace this with a new UI upgrade window. And then after that, we just have to head over to apply upgrade options. And then over here, we delete everything else over here. Yeah, all the old upgrade code, including the old upgrade functions as well. And then what we are doing here is that we just basically, this is the main thing we're doing. We're calling upgrade window, set upgrades, and then we set this to available upgrades. And then what's all this extra logic here? This extra logic here is basically just check if the luck stat is of a certain value, and then we randomly generate a value. And then if this luck stat is greater than this value that we generate randomly, then we will get 4 upgrades. Otherwise, we get 3 upgrades, and then we get a text that says increase your luck stat to get a chance to get 4 items. And that's really about it. And then after that, we have, of course, we have a else if over here. So what this section does over here is it prevents the UI upgrade window from appearing if you have no longer any more upgrades to run. So over here, we count the number of available upgrades. If the available upgrades are if you have taken all the possible items, then when you level up, nothing happens. Okay, otherwise the game will stop. Yeah, so what this does is, again, so we're just tying this to the UI upgrade window. So now the UI upgrade window is independent, right? And then we, using the play inventory, we just decide what are the upgrades that we want available for the player, and then we pass this information to the upgrade window, and then the upgrade window will handle everything else. So the most important function here is actually the set upgrades function inside the UI upgrade window. And in the UI upgrade window, what we do is we do a couple of things. The UI upgrade window, the set upgrades function actually has an inventory object. It has a list of possible upgrades. This is what you pass. This is what the play inventory calculates and passes to the upgrade window. And then you have a pick. This is how many options you want to have. And then tooltip, basically, these two are optional variables, okay, which means that if you do not supply a value over here, this defaults to 3. And then if you do not specify a tooltip over here, this defaults to empty. So what we have here is that we basically pick, for the pick variable, we update it so that we take the minimum, the smaller value of either max options or pick. Max options, if you recall, is the value that you see over here. Okay, so if I set max options to 4 and then I set the pick for set upgrades to 7. Okay, anyway, this window will always restrict the value to max options. So if pick is bigger than max options, then we want the max options to apply. Okay, and then once we've done that, we will make in the game, we will duplicate the upgrade options over here. All right, so yeah, so then we will be doing that using code so that, you know, we don't have to create all the templates for ourselves. Okay, this is part of modularity as well, right? Because if I have, say, 10 options, I don't want to have to update my UI so that, you know, if I have 10 options, then I have to manually do it. If I have 7 options, I will manually do it. I want everything to be automated for us. And then once it's done, you know, we also check whether there are any tooltips. So we update the tooltip template, and then we check whether the tooltip is empty. If it's empty, we will set it to false, the set active to false, which means that it hides the tooltip. So this either evaluates to true or false. And if the tooltip is empty, it basically evaluates to false, and the tooltip template is set to be inactive, otherwise it will be set to active. And then once it's done, we'll look through and we'll check how many upgrade options we need, and then we'll disable the upgrade options that are not needed. So for example, in the game, so let's say we have 4 upgrade options, right? What's going to happen is that every time we level up, we're going to calculate the luck stat, and then we will see whether the luck stat is sufficient for us to have 4 options. So if it's not, we will disable one of the options. Otherwise, we'll enable the option. Okay, so again, this is adaptive, or rather this is modular, which means that this can support as many options as you want. So it need not necessarily be 4. It can be 3, it can be 5, it can be 7. So you have to, when you're using this, you will have to modify your code based on whatever, how do I say it? Based on whatever setting your game is made to. So let's say if you want to have more upgrades, just increase number of options over here. And of course, you've got to update the play inventory script as well, and you've got to change the which section is that? And you've got to change this section over here. Okay, the set upgrade section. Yeah, so if you want to have more options, you can just change the value over here. This changes the code. So then this basically activates or deactivates the options based on however upgrades options you have. So then what's happening here is that in this loop over here, with every loop, the upgrade window will randomly pick an upgrade and then put it inside the upgrade window. Okay, and then after that, it will find the level element, it will find the name, it finds the description, it finds the icon, it finds the button, and it populates the functions accordingly. All right, so over here, for example, for the name, it just puts in the name. For the level, it puts in max, it puts in new, the new text, or it puts in the level. And then for the description, it just finds the description and puts it in. For the icon, it finds the image and it puts the icon sprite inside. And then for the button, it attaches either the level up or the add function, depending on whether this is the first time you're getting the item, whether you already have the item and you just want to level it up. Okay, so otherwise, if over here, if we are checking, and of course if we have an option, then we will show the option, otherwise we'll hide the option. And then finally we recalculate the layout. So because every time we have different numbers of options, so every time we show all the buttons, we'll do a recalculate layout, and this will adjust the height of the element accordingly. And once that's done, basically the rest of the code here, recalculate layout, just basically changes the vertical layout so that it always fills up the entire window. And if there are lesser than 3 options or whatever, then it will just resize itself, or however many options you set, it will just resize itself accordingly. And finally, we have update over here, which update over here just basically checks whether the screen has changed, and if it does, it just calls recalculate layout. So every time the screen changes, it saves the last screen size, and then it checks every time the update runs, it checks whether the screen size has changed. If it's changed, it will just call recalculate layout again. And then awake basically just populates all our variables. And then here we have a reset, which basically finds an upgrade option and finds a tooltip as well. All right, and that's really all. That's really all there is to part 19. I think I didn't explain everything very well today, and a little annoyed by that. Tell you what, so we're gonna try and edit this video to put something coherent together. If there's any part that I need to explain more, I probably will have some parts I have to add explanations to. So I'll probably do another recording sometime along the week to fill up the missing portions. So this was shorter than I expected, but it was also more complex than I expected because, yeah, you know what? We just go back and we will see how the video pans out, and then from there we will act accordingly. So hopefully I can get the video up by next week. Let's see how my editor works with the footage I have. And yeah, I think that's all I have for today. So thanks for tuning in. So wow, we have 7 concurrent viewers over here looking at me flounder. Okay, so we'll put the video together and then we'll see how everything turns out. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your support as usual. And I'm glad that our videos helping you to do whatever you want to do with Unity. I'll see you next week. So have a good weekend.